Okay, so we're connected. So good morning. Seeing that little circle go round and round and round, didn't know if it would ever actually say you're live. So I hope you're well on this beautiful morning. It's really so. Sorry, there's something happening here at the door. Please close the door. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So my dog wanted to come in, and my dog is getting a lot of solicitous attention these days because she went through a period of having lymphoma, and now she's in remission. So we're very solicitous of her every want. So sorry about that. So yeah, it's this kind of really valuing. I guess it's an example of valuing the love and the companionship and the joy of those around us that we share our lives with. So I think maybe that's important for all of us to touch into as we feel vulnerable, and we're all experiencing a lot of loss in so many ways. So hi Roxanne and Robin and Jane and Marilyn and Jim, Ludmila. So nice to see you, Elena, Stephanie, Anne, Geneviève, Cynthia, Marcus, Marilyn, Maryse, Louis. Yeah, nice to be with you all. Yeah, I want to reflect for just a few minutes on, there's something so beautiful and precious about this connection that we have, this gathering together in a way that transcends time and space, because we gather together. Some of us, those who put their names on the live chat, they're here in this moment, whether this is 10:30 or 9:30 or 11:30, where you are, but it's now, and to have this sense of gathering together with the sangha now, and to share this intention to be together in practice is very beautiful and precious, and nourishing. It's nourishing to each one of us, and it's also nourishing to the world around us, the world within which we live, from which we emerge, within which our life is arising moment by moment. To put into life in this moment this intention to continue in practice, to deepen in practice, is a gift. It's something nourishing, positive. You could even say it's a kind of medicine for the world that we can contribute in this moment, when we all need medicine. We all need the medicine of love. We all need the medicine of wisdom and compassion. So thank you so much for arriving, for showing up, and then also for those who listen to this later, maybe who chose to go for a walk or be out in the garden or whatever it is you chose to do or couldn't show up, maybe had a responsibility. And for those who join in another time, it's still transcending this, ordinary sense of space and time, and just joining in the timeless sangha that keeps orienting our lives toward a deepening practice, toward liberation, toward an open heart. So, so this is perhaps, in whatever words you would put it, an intention. And when we say freedom, we're also talking about freedom from suffering. I mean, that's what we are talking about: freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering. So it's a skillful response to suffering, to say, yeah, I'm really getting caught up in wanting things to be other than how they are. I'm really getting caught up in just wanting to hang out with people, to go to a restaurant, to have a cappuccino on a terrace, and celebrate the arrival of spring and summer, and that's not available to us. And so we meet these wants rather than going deeper into the suffering of stress around things not being the way we prefer them, we'd like them to be, of finding a space of peace with how things are, of finding the space within ourselves, of finding the ways to nourish ourselves with calmness and with joy and with wisdom. So this is a wise response. This is a skillful response. And again, I think in a very profound and mysterious way, this response of caring for the suffering that we are open to in ourselves, in our lives, is medicine for the world, is medicine for those who are not in this moment able to do that. And so in a wonderful and beautiful way, we hold the suffering of everyone when we touch our own suffering, our own, the suffering that is arising within this being, and we stay with our practice. We turn to our practice to nourish us, and we find sources within to soothe, to heal. I've been drawing from a very wonderful book in my teaching. Last weekend, I taught a retreat, which was the ending of a 19-month program on the Anapanasati Sutta and the Parami that I had been leading, been guiding, and participating in as a teacher and participant. It was a beautiful experience, and someone gave me, the group gave me a gift of this book. It's called The First Free Women, and it's poems of the early Buddhist nuns that actually practiced with the Buddha, and they left home. They left many, many different kinds of circumstances. Some were wives, some were daughters not married, some were courtesans, some were slaves, widows, some lived in richness, some lived in poverty. They came from many, many different kinds of lives, inspired toward greater freedom, inspired by what they had perhaps heard about the Buddha and the sangha, the community of women that were gathering to follow the teachings of the Buddha. So these poems have recently been retranslated, and they've been retranslated by somebody who is a deep scholar of the Pali language, in which they were first spoken and then eventually written down, and so they're short. So I'm going to read this one twice. It's called Vijaya, Victor. So they all have the name of some quality that is kind of expressed or touched into in some interesting way in the poem. When everyone else was meditating, I'd be outside circling the hall. Finally, I went to confess. I'm hopeless, I said. The elder nun smiled. Just keep going, she said. Nothing stays in orbit forever. If this circling is all you have, why not make this circling your home? I did as she told me and went on circling the hall. If you find yourself partly in and partly out, if you find yourself drawn to this path and also drawing away, I can assure you, you're in good company. Just keep going. Sometimes the most direct path isn't a straight line. When everyone else was meditating, I'd be outside circling the hall. Finally, I went to confess. I'm hopeless, I said. The elder nun smiled. Just keep going, she said. Nothing stays in orbit forever. If this circling is all you have, why not make this circling your home? I did as she told me and went on circling the hall. If you find yourself partly in and partly out, if you find yourself drawn to this path and also drawing away, I can assure you, you're in good company. Just keep going. Sometimes the most direct path isn't a straight line. I've spoken to people over the course of these past weeks who have found that they feel very drawn to deepen their practice at this time. And I've also spoken to people who have found that it's very hard to sit in meditation, that sometimes, it can be a roller coaster. It can be like a circle going round and round. And sometimes you're in one place and sometimes you're in another. And so it's really important that if sitting practice feels inaccessible, that we recognize that we're still in the field of practice. When we're trying to just stay kind and gentle with ourselves, when we're trying to not do harm to others, when we're trying to hold ourselves in compassion and love and also extend that beyond ourselves to others, when we're thinking and acting and speaking in ways that are generous, when we're cultivating patience, we're in the field of practice. When we go out in our garden and we open to the life around us with a sense of love and kindness, we're in the field of practice. So, so if it doesn't, if your practice maybe doesn't always look like you imagine it should look like, it's okay. Just, remember, sometimes the most direct path isn't a straight line. We have ideas about what our practice should look like. And it's not always like that. So we're living in a time of uncertainty, and we're living in a time of loss. And so that will be felt, that will come up. And that will sometimes just feel like it's painful, and then sometimes it will feel like we can be at home in that, reminding ourselves perhaps that life never was certain. Life never was predictable. We perhaps told ourselves that it was, but really we never knew what the next moment would bring. We never knew if the next breath would be there. We assume it will be. And I guess having that uncertainty is very challenging, and it also can be a way that we find the stability within ourselves, within the wider uncertainty. Can be a time that we can find that. And so as we can, let's find our way to the cushion. Let's find our way to, the time of practice every day that we use to come home to ourselves, and to make this home a place of welcome, to make this inner home a place where we find safety, where we find refuge. So let's take this time now to begin our practice. We can just putting the clock where I can see it. We can find a posture that feels comfortable and alert. We can find stability and balance. We can bring this intention to find this inner refuge and also to find it together with others. So we find it together with this sangha, this wider sangha. And not only this sangha, this True North Insight sangha, but the extending in wider circles. The sangha of all those who are walking the path to freedom and compassion, of all those who are of goodwill and kindness and courage, caring for others in so many, many ways. So joining ourselves with this greater sangha, and of course, all beings who are suffering, all beings who are being born and who are dying in each moment. So joining ourselves with all beings as we bring an intention to commit in this time that we sit together to practice with commitment, and beginning again, and with joy, with the joy that the Dharma brings, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. So wherever we are, beginning, middle, and end, and we might go, from one place on the path to another. Remember, it's not a straight line. It's something that unfolds in its own way. So trusting in that unfolding and knowing that the Dharma is also, as we enter into the Dharma, that the Dharma is within us, the Dharma is unfolding within us and is holding us and supporting us. So trusting is part of our intention, perhaps. Both the energy, the faith, the energy, the doing, the commitment, and the trust, the faith. And feeling the body, sitting on the earth. Stable and upright. Feeling the breath in the body, coming and going. And this awareness of the rising and falling of the breath can be like a drum beat that calls us back when the mind wanders. The mind wanders off, as it will, just smilingly, kindly, gently. In a moment when we feel the arising or the falling of the breath, coming back, letting it call us home, back to the body. And discovering in the body a quality of stillness. It doesn't mean that the body has to be like stone, rigid, unmoving. But there is a quality of stillness in the body that we can find a place of rest in. This stillness can feel very open, like vast space. Like a sapling may sway in the wind, but the space within which the movement occurs is still. In presence in the body, we can find a kind of spaciousness. So even though winds might blow, winds of wanting, anxiety, aversion, disconnection, when our attention is turned toward the space within which things are rising and passing away, we might find some stability. It might be for a moment, it might be for a few moments, it might be more enduring. Let's take a few minutes in silence to inhabit the stillness in the body, which opens to a sense of space. as we sit and practice, mindfulness is our friend, sati. And so when we become caught up, the mind begins to drift. The mind goes into story, wanting, not wanting, past, future. And then we may notice, "Ah, this is what's happening." And so we notice our friend sati, mindfulness. This is how Bhikkhu Analayo talks about mindfulness, and I think it's quite lovely. So she calls us back, and we joyfully, we smilingly remember, oh yes, right. Presence in the body, presence with the breath, this moment, openness, stillness.
Inhabiting the stillness and spaciousness within doesn't mean that there's no movement. It doesn't mean that we need to somehow shut out what's moving through us. It's finding a seat in what's not changing, what's not moving. Finding our grounding. And that is something that we learn. It may be for a moment. We can see a thought come and go and not get hooked by it. Or we can feel a sensation, hear a sound coming, arising, and passing away. And then it ceases. So we may notice the silence, the spaciousness, the stillness, in noticing the ending of things, perhaps. That's part of our practice, is to notice how things end and let them go. So as this sitting practice comes to an end, let's dedicate our practice so we can discover within ourselves what this means to dedicate the blessing of our practice. What do you discover has manifested within you? For me, this quality of
of peace, of openness of heart, of joy, are all blessings of my practice. And so what's good, what has arisen in this time of practice, I want to share. They're intangible. They're not things. It's not something I can pass to somebody and say, here, take this. But there's an intention to share it, to extend it to all beings. And that's how I understand the sharing of our blessings and of the blessings of our practice. And so it's something that goes, that happens in a non-material way. So it's harder for us to kind of get this mind around, which is really a sense organ. The mind is a sense organ, and deals with sensory experience and abstractions of sensory experience. And so what's the word spiritual points at something which is not in that realm, but a realm that we can inhabit and we can discover and we can discover within ourselves and develop. So let's dedicate those spiritual gifts that we develop, that are developing through our practice, to the benefit of all beings, all beings everywhere. And you might, just before I ring the bell, you might take a moment to bring to mind some particular beings that you're thinking of, people that maybe you know or you know of, or that are suffering, that you want to include in this dedication. Maybe people in the CHSLDs, the people who have lost dear ones, or people who are sick themselves, people who are living in poverty and with different layers of oppression, oppression of the COVID pandemic, and also oppression of racial or sexual orientation or gender identity discrimination, or other kinds of discrimination. That people, illness, disability, mental illness, so many ways that people are marginalized. And so in this time, that suffering is compounded. So those are some of the groups and also individuals we might bring to mind to dedicate the merit. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free. Thank you, my dear friends. I just want to say something about kind of the environment I'm in, because it's different than it had been for the first couple of months when I began offering YouTube sessions. so last weekend, as I mentioned, I led a retreat, and so I wanted to create a space of practice, like so people, when we're practicing in a retreat center, we're in a space, and so this is my practice space, and for the YouTube sessions, I had originally kind of turned it around and was trying to simplify and create more of a focus, and then when I put it back more or less to how it was, something's changed, but I think a practice room can always change as our practice changes. So anyway, this is so I don't usually sit with my back to the Buddhas that are and images that are here. I usually sit facing them, and when I do my practice, I do bows, and I take refuge, and I chant, and I sit, and so I just decided to leave it as it is, and it's it's more than it was. I had honed it down, and it was simple, and but it's to make it sustainable. I just wanted to invite you into my space as it is. Um, so uh, so so welcome into my meditation room, and I hope that it's something that you enjoy being part of, and maybe in whatever way you, if you haven't already, whatever way seems kind of good for you, you might create a special space for your practice, if you can. I know that for some people living with, when I was in years previous, when I was a single mom and I had a small house, a small apartment, and young kids, it was hard to have a dedicated space. So that's a reality that some people live, and so we're grateful, and we live with and take joy in the space and the opportunities that we have. So I wish you joy. I wish you joy this week as you live and see the joy of life around you. I'm practicing that a lot recently. Just practicing taking joy in seeing how love is expressed among people. How love is expressed in the blooming of flowers. And the connection of all of life is expressed in the blooming of flowers, which feed the bees and birds with nectar, and how we're part of all that. So I invite you to take joy, and this is an antidote to discontent. And also to cultivate love and compassion and equanimity as well, these beautiful, boundless qualities of heart. So be well, my friends. Much love to each one of you, and I look forward